Good evening. Welcome to Real America. Well, today the hearings before the Senate Judiciary Committee for Judge Amy Comey Barrett's confirmation began at 9 o'clock in the morning, with the stakes being extremely high. 22 days left until the election. The hearings will occur over the course of 4 days. Republican and Democrat senators will testify either in person or remotely, as they did beginning today. Now, the battle between Republicans and Democrats is whether or not the president has the constitutional right to follow through with the nomination so close to the election. But all of those concerns will be heard from each senator as the day goes on and on. We wanted to show you a few of those senators' comments and what they had to say.
Democratic colleagues will say this has never been done, and they're right in this regard. Nobody's, I think, has ever been confirmed in an election year past July. The bottom line is Justice Ginsburg, when asked about this several years ago, said that a president serves for 4 years, not 3.
This isn't a rush to justice. This is a rush to put in a justice.
Now, Judge Barrett patiently listened to these senators speak about her confirmation today, including what Senator Kamala Harris had to say. We want you to take a peek at just a little bit of what Judge Barrett's opening statement looked like, in case you missed it.
I believe Americans of all backgrounds deserve an independent Supreme Court that interprets our Constitution and laws as they are written.
Okay, so joining me now to discuss all of this buildup to the hearings is the president of the Americans for Limited Government, Richard Manning. Welcome back to the show. Richard, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great, Dan. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so we've now been hearing about this for weeks since Justice Ginsburg had passed, and we knew this was going to come to a full head. I watched this today and I went, wow, what a bunch of political theater from the left. I'm so glad to see, though, they didn't start ripping into the judge yet, because I think she is too far above that, and I don't think and hope they'll do that. But they seem to just be really hammering on the fact that the Affordable Care Act, or as some folks call it, Obamacare, is at stake if she's confirmed, and really hammered the president for pushing this through, some calling it reckless. Even, I may have heard an unconstitutional comment in there today, which is absurd, because the law is the law. The Constitution says what it says, and for folks that don't know, Richard, fill them in on what it says, and no matter if it's 24 days or 2 days or 240 days.
Yeah, the President of the United States serves for a 4-year term, and he is actually instructed to nominate Supreme Court justice. The Senate has a prerogative on whether or not to bring that up, and the Senate seemingly has the votes, wants to spend the Senate time to do this, and as a result, Amy Coney Barrett will have a full, fair hearing, and we'll get an opportunity, hopefully, to have a vote on the floor of the Senate as to whether or not she should be on the Supreme Court of the United States.
Let's talk about your feelings on what you witnessed this morning. I again call it political theater. I know that Broadway's closed down and that most of the country, all live theater's been canceled since March. And it seems like the Democratic senators involved in this judiciary hearing decided to act like actors today and bring some theater to our political house. That your take on it?
Yeah, there's no doubt. There's no doubt that the Democrats are attempting to get their YouTube moments where they can get lots of YouTube hits and raise money and do all that kind of stuff. But, you know, the reality is their basic argument is that they don't like how she might rule as a Supreme Court justice. And ironically, since she is an originalist, there is really no way to know how she's going to rule on any specific issue, because she's going to look at it based upon the Constitution, and she will make a determination based on her best judgment on what the Constitution says. And that's how it should be. Congress passed a law. There's a high bar to overturn a law like Obamacare, since it was passed by Congress. And I think Amy Coney Barrett's going to put a pretty high bar on putting her thumbprint on any legislation, because she doesn't believe she's a legislator. She believes she's a jurist.
Yeah, and that's what people need to remember. And it's funny how these Democrats are trying to paint her like she is going to write and change laws. That's not what the justices do. That's actually the job of Congress and those senators who sit there a lot of times, and I'll say this, on both sides of the aisle and don't actually do their damn jobs and create legislations which become the law, which become things that we all live by. They're supposed to create it. The president's supposed to be the executive who signs off on it. And then if there is a problem or issue that goes to the highest court, they then take their years of wisdom, look at the law. They don't take their opinion, and then they rule on that. That's the basics, layman term of how this is supposed to work, right?
Absolutely. And on a very specific issue, they always want to talk about pre-existing conditions in healthcare. But let me be clear. If the House and the Senate and the president want to come together and create a law related to pre-existing conditions on healthcare, they could do that tomorrow, absent Obamacare. And that's the key here. If Nancy Pelosi and those Democrat senators actually want to do something on that issue, they should write an independent, standalone law dealing with pre-existing conditions, negotiate it out with the Republicans, and come up with a solution that's separate and apart from a law that has affected from Obamacare, which has been a disaster in terms of its overall implementation.
But Richard, hold on. That would require them working with the president. That would require them coming together with the president and sitting down and working something out for the American people to keep pre-existing conditions in whatever new healthcare system we get when hopefully this one is repealed and replaced or even corrected and tweaked and fixed, whichever way it comes down. That would mean them working with him, which then could be in turn looked at as a win for the Trump administration. And by golly, we know that can never happen.
The Democrats would rather have the issue of pre-existing conditions than actually deal with pre-existing conditions. And that's the sad truth of the Democrats in Washington, D.C. They would rather have problems than to solve them.
Well, the president has already commented. He's tweeted. I don't know how many statements he's made. Maybe I can get the producers to find all the clips like we did where he actually condemned white nationalists and racists and KKK. Maybe we can find all the times he has commented in the last 4 years that he has literally said you are going to be able, if you have a pre-existing condition, you will keep your health insurance. He's trying to keep the cost of prescription drugs down. He got rid of the single payer. He's kept his word. He's pushing to keep his word. And he's tweeted and commented about I don't know how many times, but yet how many Democrats today kept hammering that home in their opening speech like you were going to lose that option if she's confirmed and President Trump is reelected? It makes no sense to me.
Well, it's because it's about fear as opposed to fact, and they're trying to play on fear. The truth is these Democrats know that Amy Coney Barrett is an extraordinarily well-qualified nominee. She is a brilliant jurist and will be a tremendous addition to the Supreme Court. And the fact that she is an originalist means we don't know how she's going to rule. What we do know is that she's not going to try to make law from the bench, and that scares them because they really prefer jurists who want to make law rather than decide whether law is constitutional or not.
Yeah, speaking of laws, let's talk about Mr. Biden and the Dems talking about changing the law, actually changing the makeup of our highest court in the land. We're going to show a clip here in a minute after your interview of Mr. Biden once again dodging the question, which continues to come up. Ms. Harris dodged it last week in the vice presidential debate. Democrats like Nancy Pelosi continue to dodge it. And no one in the mainstream media will hold their feet to the fire and say, answer this question truthfully and honestly. Will you be trying to stack the courts? They've already brought it up, though, several weeks ago, right? They threw it out there like, well, maybe we'll do this. Maybe we'll add some Senate seats in Washington, D.C. and make that an extra, the 51st state, so we can get Senate seats, because you know which way those would go. They'll be Democratic seats. So your feeling on that? Well, why can't we get a straight answer? And secondly, how difficult would it be in the first place to actually change the Constitution and change the makeup of our court? They would need the Senate, the House, and the presidency, wouldn't they, to do all this?
Well, they would need the Senate, the House, and the presidency, but it's relatively simple because it would be a simple law. The difference is the Democrats will get rid of the filibuster in the Senate, so there will not be any protection against a 51-vote majority or 50-vote majority with the vice president to do just that. And let's be clear. Packing the court like they're proposing is nothing more than destroying the independence of the judicial branch. They're saying that we want to make sure the judicial branch will not overrule anything that we do that might be unconstitutional, because we're going to put people who are like-minded with us on that court to make certain that we always win. They want to create a fixed legal game, and it's wrong. and it needs to be defeated. And Joe Biden should be ashamed of himself for saying that the American public doesn't deserve to know what he thinks about it before the election. How dare he?
Yeah, you're talking about that exact soundbite. Don't give it away yet. I've been building up to it at the beginning of the show. But no, he literally said that, folks. You're going to see it. We're not going to edit the clip. It came out of his mouth. He's literally saying that you, the American people, don't have the right to know whether or not he'd stack the court, which is absolute BS. Coming from a man who served 40-some years in office and now running for the highest office in the land, who won't tell the American people if he plans to stack the court. Richard, tell me, is it looking like, from what you've heard, they would want to add 2, so they would have 11? That way the thinking would be, it would be a kind of an even split, and then you never know which way Chief Justice Roberts may go, because he's gone left, right on some issues. So their goal would be to add 2 more, and it'd be 11. Is that their goal?
I've heard 15. Listen, if they're going to do this, they're not going to do it in a way that they can lose. I mean, the bottom line of stacking the court, of packing the court, is to win. And if they're going to move forward with that process, then they would move to 15, because there's no way in heck that they're going to take the grief and the political downside without ensuring they get the outcomes they want.
Wow. Richard, I've said this analogy before. I bet you'll agree with it. This reminds me of someone playing a home football game, and at halftime, they pull the refs in and they go, here's the deal. You're on our home turf, so we're going to change the rules which benefit us. And then they go out and win the game in the last couple of quarters. That's what it sounds like to me. Hey, we're not winning. We see we're going to get beat. We're not going to get our appointee into the Supreme Court. We may lose the presidency, probably not going to take back the Senate, and you might even lose a few seats in the House the way you Democrats have been acting. So now let's just go change the rules in the middle of the game. That's just the way it seems to me.
Well, that's actually just right. They, should they win, they never want to have be put in a liability situation again, and so they want to change the courts in such a way to make certain they never lose legally, and that's essentially what they're doing. If you remember the old Calvin and Hobbes cartoon, they're playing Calvin ball with the law. They want to make the law whatever they want it to be at any time that benefits them. And that's just not the way the law is supposed to work. You and I are supposed to know what the law is so we can follow it, rather than having the law be changed every 14 seconds because there's jurists who want to write legislation, rather than have Congress do that. And what's worse is this writing legislation by the judicial branch effectively takes the value of our vote away, because our congressmen don't matter, our senators don't matter, our president doesn't matter.
That's right.
The only people that matter are members of the Supreme Court, and that's why we need to keep it at 9, and we need to just, where the chips fall, that's where they fall. We need to keep it at 9 so it stays an honest process.
Yeah, and follow the Constitution. Richard Manning, President of Americans for Limited Government, thank you for your insight, sir. We appreciate it. We'll be chatting about this over the next 4 or 5 days, I'm sure, as these hearings continue. You have a great day.
Thank you, Dan.
All right, so Richard and I were just alluding to this, as usual, Mr. Biden refusing to answer whether or not, if elected, he'll pack the court with more than 9 Supreme Court justices. So what we're going to show you, this happened in Friday in Las Vegas. Biden asked for the, 127th time by a reporter at an affiliate, KTNV, on what his plans would be and why voters deserve to know if or not he will pack the court. Now, you just have to watch how this played out. Biden denied it, and then he pretty much said that we, the American people, don't deserve to know whether or not he will pack the court. Just watch.
Sir, I've got to ask you about packing the courts. And I know that you said yesterday you aren't going to answer the question until after the election. But this is the #1 thing that I've been asked about from viewers in the past couple of days.
Well, you've been asked by the viewers, who are probably Republicans, who don't want me continuing to talk about what they're doing to the court right now.
Well, sir, don't the voters deserve to know
No,
where
they
you
don't.
stand?
I'm not going to play his game.
You heard that, right? No, they don't. And then he pulled back real quick and tried to switch it, right? The old Potomac two-step. Let me sidestep it and throw it back on Trump. I'm not going to play Trump's game. But you heard him say it. You don't deserve to know. That from the man who spent over 40 years in office, the doing nothing Joe. That's him. And telling us we don't deserve to know. Keep that in mind if you haven't voted yet, folks. And by the way, producers, find out who that reporter was. Let's buy him a beer. President Trump had a rally at the Orlando Sanford International Airport in Florida. Check this out. This will be the president's first in person back on the campaign trail since he tested positive for coronavirus. Now, he's been cleared by all of his physicians We're told that he is no longer at risk for transmitting the disease whatsoever. President Trump said that he has been feeling great and he's glad to be back on the trail after his rally in Florida today. He's then going to stop in Pennsylvania, Iowa, and maybe even Michigan. And he wants to hold